focus on the key messages that they need to get out there, and they feel more confident. You feel like there's this energy level that's been uplifted, and so therefore you're actually able to bring that inside person much more out with a much stronger voice.
Have you ever gone to your closet and you're trying to pick out an outfit and just nothing feels right? It's almost like your entire wardrobe is a representation of a past version of yourself. And you just want to feel confident in what you're wearing and just show up with a certain kind of energy. Well, that's why I'm so excited to bring this conversation to you. I had the honor of sitting down with Sonya Choi La Rosa, and she is a certified personal brand and style coach who holds an MBA in technology. Change and transformation is at her core. Sonya has embraced her 20-year corporate experience and refined her craft to work with female career professionals in unlocking their next level of success through the power of personal brand and style. This was such an eye-opening conversation and just makes me realize how deep clothes can go and how they represent you at your core. This is such a great episode. I'm so honored to share it with you now. Welcome back to another episode of Rewiring Health. I'm so excited to have this conversation with Sonya Choi La Rosa. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much, Kelly. I'm so excited to be here and have a chat.
Me too. And we're just talking. This is such a unique topic, but something that I'm curious about. And I know people who listen to this podcast are going to really enjoy this one because it's so unique. So we're going to talk about personal branding, and I can't wait to dive right in. But first, I want to hear about how did you get into this and what led you down this path to helping people with such a unique thing?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Well, actually, it probably started many years ago, given that I have done the corporate climb for 20 odd years or so. And through that, really experienced a lot of change through my many decades. And so if I take it myself way back when, it was actually that I was climbing that corporate ladder, and I was looking around me to look for inspiration for sort of executives who I could aspire to. And what I found was that I didn't really fit the mold. I would look and they would be perfectly preened and they would have this amazing brand. And I knew that I was really good at what I did. I worked very, very hard because that's the way I'd been brought up. Work really hard and, you'll achieve and you'll reach those heights. But the challenge for me was that I kept working really hard, but I felt like I wasn't seen. I felt like it took a really long time. And then I couldn't find any role models that were like me. So I've got a Eurasian background, and many of the leaders at that time were, perfectly preened, perfect hair, all of that sort of stuff. And as I climbed through that corporate ladder and I made my way through, I realized I'd lost myself a little bit through that journey. That was probably phase one of it. And when I say I lost myself, is that I actually tried to replicate the people that weren't me, because I thought that's what I needed to do in order to be heard in boardrooms, in order to be heard in meeting places, within sort of the corporate world. And after sort of fast forward a few years, and after having children, and then trying to juggle being mum and also then trying to still drive for my career at that time, there was this disconnect. I felt like two separate individuals. I would turn up to work, try to be dressed in sort of my heels and suit and all that, and try to be perfectly preen like I thought. And then you would say I'd be the one running out the door at sort of 5 o'clock, swap the sneakers on, run to go get the kids, come home and, start dinner and then log back on again late in the afternoon. And it was actually through that personal journey that I discovered a bit more about my personal brand, and then also around how style was impacting actually how I felt about myself internally. I've always had a love of fashion all the way through, but particularly at that point was a real turning point for me to start looking into my style and going, well, hang on, what's amiss here? Because I can't keep going like this with two different personalities on show.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so really, your story is so relatable. And there's so many people that go through that. It's like you're constantly looking outside yourself to feel a certain way. And then it's like empty. And I love to like that as you discovered yourself, you realize like what your personal style and brand are and how much that does make a difference. And like, I can totally relate. I just cleaned out a bunch of clothes and I'm like, this does not jive with me anymore. So there is a feel to clothes. And like when you put them on and how you feel in them, are you the person who says yes, even though you want to say no? Are you the person who puts your own needs and wants last behind the demands of your work and everyone else in your life? If you answered yes to any of these, you may be self abandoning, and it does not come without a cost. If you want to know if you're self abandoning for achievement, take my free quiz in the show notes. How much does it matter of how much you know yourself when you're going through your personal brand? Is it important to do some self-discovery when you're recognizing like what you should be wearing that jives with you? What does that look like?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I actually say that is part of the fundamental part of trying to identify your brand and your style. And the reason for that is you see many people will, you'll get inspiration maybe from looking on Pinterest or socials or things like that. But then what you're still trying to do is the same pattern of looking to go, okay, well, I really like that. Then you go put it on, it just doesn't feel like me. So actually one of that first stage of actually parking all of that and looking around you and just taking that quiet time to actually understand, key things like what are your values? And you might think, what have values got to do with my clothes and the clothes that I put on? But actually, it's the starting point to actually build out, well, what does that vision look like for you in the future? What do you want to be seen as? What do you want to be represented as? And I know when we talk about personal brand, we talk about it in a way that sometimes you're not so focused on the style kind of makes up one of the pie segments of it. But what I find is when you go through that whole process and better understand those values, what you don't like, what do you want to be perceived as, then and you've done some analysis in that space, then actually being able to find your style naturally falls out of that quite easily.
I love that. And I love it's like the inside, you start inside and then it comes outward. And now you can represent what you're feeling inside outward. I think that's absolutely amazing. And can we
Yeah.
kind of talk about like reciprocal? So like when you do your self discovery, you find your personal brand and then you start wearing the clothes. Like now how does that reciprocate into how you feel? What does that look
Yeah.
like?
So, and this is something that I've obviously experienced personally, but many of my clients in that same way as well. So many clients I've got have actually stepped into leadership roles or C-suite roles, that type of thing, and it doesn't matter how high achieving they are, how brilliant some of them actually are. There is something inside that still makes you think, oh, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe someone's going to perceive me as X or Y. And what they find is exactly like that quote around that what you wear is sometimes a suit of armor. When they have the right outfit on, they stop thinking about what they're wearing. They start being able to focus on the key messages that they need to get out there, and they feel more confident. You feel like there's this energy level that's been uplifted, and so therefore you're actually able to bring that inside person much more out with a much stronger voice is probably what I would say.
Yeah, I love there is so much power to feeling comfortable in what you're wearing. Like there's a lot to that because if you're like adjusting and feeling like you're just off, it's like you're so wrapped up in that it is hard to really focus on anything else. So I can totally get that. One thing I want to know is like, because I've noticed this in my life and a lot of my friends do, it's like as you evolve and you become, you go from your 20s to 30s to 40s and 50s, you're evolving internally and also like your clothes that you're wearing. Like if you're someone, I'm someone who holds on to clothes way too long, but like, how do you evolve with your clothes? Can you talk about that as well as like what are things we should look for if like maybe we should do a whole revamping of our wardrobe that it does fit us? So what are some things we can like or things that we do or symptoms of not having a wardrobe that is fitting us for where we are in our personal evolution?
Yeah, for sure. No, I see it a lot actually, because as you said, as you go through those years, you do definitely hold on to things that either have some sentimental value to you, or perhaps you think, well, I paid a lot of money for that, and it'll be really, I just want to hold on to it because it cost a lot at the time, because you have those visual memories of those things. And I know here we have a couple of suit brands that were very much sort of top of the range back sort of 20 years ago. And I've walked into many clients' wardrobes where so 20 years on, they've still got that jacket there. But yet, and when they put it on, they actually say, I feel like I've just come out of college and I'm going for my first interview,
Yeah.
right? Because it's
Yep.
still there. So one of the key things to do is to, on a regular basis. So if you can't do it, multiple times in a year, it's at least once a year. It's sitting down, and now's the perfect time for that. I talk about brand and style goals for the year. You to sit down and actually go, okay, am I actually happy with where I'm at today? Do I actually want to evolve my style? Because then if you sit down and actually consciously make that decision, if you go, look, you know what, I'm really happy with everything that I've got, it fits really well and it represents me, then all good. But at least you've made a conscious decision. And so when you've then decided potentially, actually, you know what, I want to elevate and I want to make some changes here, then going through that personal process, but then actually taking the next step, which is, okay, facing that wardrobe and taking the time to go, okay, I'm going to do section by section and start to give yourself 3 seconds to look at every piece. You don't necessarily have to try everything on, but what's your gut reaction when you physically take the quiet time? And I appreciate, it can be really hard when you're really busy to go, where do I have time to go and do this with my wardrobe? So even if you do bite size, time blocks of 20 minutes or something to go, I'm going to focus on the pants, or I'm going to focus on the tops, might be. And start to go through that and go, what do I really like here? Does it align to my vision or how I want to be feeling now in let's say 2024? And start to go through those to start to do a bit of a cull. Because otherwise, what will happen is if you don't, it becomes a much bigger job, like anything, as you hit those decades where there's significant changes. It might be, marriage, say, kids, job changes, all of that. So I think that real trigger point from a mindset is making a conscious decision.
Yeah, I really like that. And it is so true. It's like you can get into the analysis paralysis where you think of everything that happened when you wear that outfit and then you do nothing and get rid of nothing. So I love that recommendation of like, do your gut reaction, give yourself 3 seconds and to break it into sections. It just feels so much more manageable when you do it like that. So I love that. One thing as you're speaking, because this is something that I've struggled with, and I know I have a lot of friends that have struggled with this as well. And you hear this from women in general. It's like in one side, you want to look a certain way and, wear the dressy clothes. But a lot of times, especially for women, it's like the shoes are uncomfortable. Sometimes the outfits are uncomfortable. So you're like caught in this place where you're like, you want to look good, but you also want to be comfortable. So how do you navigate that where you can be comfortable, but also look dressy and feel confident in that?
Yeah, for sure. And I relate to this. I related to, because I've been through that experience where I've tried to wear the heels and everything else. And then after kids, it was like,
Yeah.
okay, I love a heel, but I can't wear that because I need to run around and do all that. And I think it's about so firstly going, well, I use this analogy, which is sometimes you have too much icing and not enough cake in your wardrobe. And so the icing is the dressy stuff, right? Which you love to wear, that sits in the wardrobe. And, it's more for those sort of events and things like that. And so when you put it on, you feel amazing, but you don't wear it as much and it's not necessarily as comfortable. So, in order to get that balance, it's about trying to create that or achieve that smart casual, that business casual that really has come in a lot more post COVID, if you're not working in corporate sort of roles. And with that, it's always about trying to find some sort of a tailored or a structured piece and then mixing it with something that might be a little bit more fluid. So it might be a more fluid skirt with something with a little bit of movement to it, but then you might go with a structured shirt with it, right? So they're trying to find a little bit of balance between those two to create that comfort. And again, with the shoe, it really is about, if it was a heel and you used to wear something that's quite high and it's uncomfortable, can you find, something that maybe is a block heel that's a little bit more stable. And there are some amazing brands out there. And I know that I think Frankie Four's just landed in the States as well, which design, I think there's Ali Shoes as well, which is a US brand, where it's podiatrist related shoes, and they are so comfortable. And it's for the first time that you're seeing more heels and things like that are actually comfortable to wear.
Oh, that's so promising. I love that. I have not heard those, so that's amazing. I'm gonna definitely have to check that out, because that is it. It's like you want to look a certain way, but now at least that they're starting to combine that, you can feel good too while you look a certain
Exactly.
way as well. I love
Yeah.
that. As far as like casual time and maybe like downtime, can you
Yeah.
talk about that too? Is like, we have our work time, but then is it also important too to like not wear the college clothes from 20 years ago as far as how we're feeling? Like, is it important to have the downtime clothes be styled as well as the work clothes?
Yeah, so this is really interesting. So there's been studies actually done, and I just can't quote the name of the exact study, but what they actually found was that if you're not feeling great, you will actually look at your wardrobe and you will naturally grab for anything that is comforting, cozy, so you will run for that college jumper, those leggings, or whatever it might be. And in some cases, it's got to do with actually your physical mood. And so what the study tested was, okay, so if you're in that mood and you reach for something else, what does that actually then change how you're feeling? And what they found was, on the majority of cases, it did. So when you're at home, it could be two things. One, if you're working from home, definitely go through that process of, so if you exercise in the morning or something like that, and you are in your gym gear, then having that shower, doing that break, and then getting changed mentally will shift you into work mode. And that doesn't mean something that is uncomfortable, but at least putting something on that makes you feel like, I've actually gone through this transition to be ready to sit down and do work. There's a trigger in the brain that actually says, okay, yeah, I'm on now, versus an alternative. I think many of us through COVID found that we were doing the half thing, right? You had the leggings and then you had the party up top, right? But they also then found that confused the brain a little bit as well, going like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So definitely when you're at home, it doesn't mean all the time, right? If you're going to sit down and watch a Netflix movie, go put that comfy stuff on. But if you're going to actually do something, or you're going to go down to the shops, there's no reason why you can't take that time to actually put together your casual pieces so that you feel a little bit more, actually, I feel more put together. And so I feel better actually about how I'm dressed.
Yeah, I love it. So interesting too that they did a study. I mean, I can, like, you can sense that. I've experienced that in my life, where it's like you're wearing a certain thing, you feel a certain way. So I mean, there's definitely a correlation between your mood and what you're wearing. I totally get it. I can't say I'm the best at it, but I need to get better because now it's like you can see the value in that and like how it does influence you, your personal style, your personal brand in doing that. So it's amazing. And I love that. I feel like I need to go do a whole clean out after this conversation. So one thing I do, I know you talked about values were like really your first step to the process. Can you kind of walk me through like or and the listeners through like what does that look like as far as you start with values and then can you kind of go through some of your
Go
processes?
through all the steps.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I start with the values because I think that it's really important to understand what is it? Are you someone that wants to be perceived as, with that sustainability is really important to you? So, or it might be that honesty and integrity, all of those things, because I think it's really important to understand that whole person. From there, it's actually then trying to understand how do you think you're actually perceived by others? Because a lot of times we don't, like, we might have judgments about what we think people might be saying, but we don't sit down and actually write it down. So it's more thinking about if you went to ask your manager, if you went to ask a peer, how would they actually perceive you? And they might say, Kelly is outgoing and this, but she can be really quiet in meetings or something like that. And it can be really insightful. It's like doing what I would describe I think in HR, they do like a 360 analysis, they call. So similar to that, it's about thinking about that part of it. Then it's working out, well, if that's how others perceive me, how do I want to be perceived? And then seeing, is there a bit of a gap between those two? And so what will start to come out, I find, is, and I also, when I'm working one-on-one with clients, I actually do a bit of Enneagram testing as well. And so what normally comes out of that is a language that's being used starts to align to particular what I call style categories that exist in the industry. And you may have heard some of these before, I'm a classic, or I'm a I'm bohemian in style, that sort of thing. So then what we're trying to do is say, right, this is what you want to be perceived at. This is the vision around this. So then if we sit down and look at what are the styles that you actually like, what resonates with you, then how do these two come together? And does there need to be a change somewhere? And in most cases, I find that they're pretty aligned. Mm-hmm. So depending on what elements have come out of the personal brand analysis, in some small cases, you might find that there are some differences. And the question then becomes, are you ready to bring some of that to work? And why haven't you done that so far? Mm-hmm. Is there a fear? Is there, you don't want work to know about that part of you, so there's a bit of analysis around that. Once we've actually determined that, then we sit down, we work out sort of mood board and bring it all together so we can really then go, okay, this is what your style and your brand looks like together. This is what your statement is around your brand. And this is how you've got effectively like a vision board to go back to. So if you're standing at your wardrobe, you might grab for something or look for something, and then you'll look back at your vision board and you'll go, oh, hang on a second. It doesn't quite align to where I want to. No wonder it doesn't feel right on. So it just brings you kind of back down. So that's sort of that beginning part of the process.
Yeah, I love that. And I just love how like you get deep on it. It's not just picking clothes out arbitrary. I mean, there's a real process and I love that. And I think it's so awesome because it's almost like it allows you to bring more awareness to yourself through the process of picking your brand. And I love it. And I like how you show that gap of like, this is what you're wearing at work, but this is your style. Like, why are you not doing that? And that can, I would imagine, open up some doors for more self-discovery of seeing that gap.
Definitely. I've had many clients on Zoom calls go, are you sure you're not a psychologist?
Yes.
I'm like, no, it's just a matter of drawing those. And I guess when you have a second, different party looking at it and talking to you, you cannot help to really identify where you're seeing those things.
Mhm. I love that. And going off of that, with that step process, do you mind just sharing a story of like transformation of somebody you worked with that maybe was struggling with confidence, felt misaligned with what they were wearing and how they felt, and then went through the process, and then how did they feel afterwards?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, one of my clients who I've worked with for a number of years, actually, so she was always in a pretty sort of just smart casual environment. So she was allowed to wear denim jeans, that type of thing. She was in a head of role, and she'd been really comfortable in that and been there for a really long time. So she had then got a promotion and to go to a business externally. Now, that business externally, it was the first time she was going to be on the executive team. She was going to have a much larger team. She's she's a creative as well. So what she was, when we started working together again on this transition, it was firstly coming to me going, help, I'm moving into this exec role and they're all dressed like it's more, I guess, business casual, but more businessy. And she goes, I can't wear denim anymore. I'm used to wearing denim to work, denim t-shirt, jacket kind of
Yeah.
thing. And she says, I feel like I've stepped into this role and I just don't know. So what we ended up doing was that whole personal brand analysis. And through that, what came out for her was really that she wanted to walk into that room that first day and ongoing, A, to just feel respected, B, to let her creative nature shine. Because she was concerned that walking into it, because it was a bit of an older environment, that walking into that environment, that she would lose some of that creative element to her brand and her style. And so how does she maintain that? And then how does she elevate it from where she was at that at the smart casual level? So working together with her was actually quite a really emotional experience because I don't think she had really realized how it had impacted her in wanting to feel really confident in that next space. And so working together, we rebuilt this brand board where it was still going to be comfortable, but we added sort of more pops of color. It was still corporate structured lines, but we were putting her in a white suit. We were putting bold sort of greens on her, to which she would get, every time she walked into the office, people would actually just stop and go, oh my God, you're like a breath of fresh air. You're constantly dressed. How do you do that? How do you put yourself together like that? And so I'm a bit of her secret weapon in the
I
background.
love that.
But her level of confidence, it went from I'm not sure to I feel a lot better in my style. And then she's also learned how to do that herself in that next level. And it's a constant evolution as well.
Yeah, oh, I love that. And just the feel you get from that, and it takes the guesswork out of it. Like, because I think that's the hardest thing, was like when you pick out clothes, you're like, does it look good? Does it not? And then you get so in your head, and then if you don't have anything to kind of anchor down to, like the values that you talk about, and you're just doing this on your own, like I would imagine it is a tough process. I've been through it. It's a tough process to figure that out. So I love that she not only transformed her wardrobe, but she transformed herself, and then to go into a role that you may feel a little nervous about. Now, like having that just gives you that confidence to really step into it. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. It's
No, you're
amazing.
very welcome. Very welcome.
For somebody who wanted to connect with you and really dive into this process themselves, how can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Instagram and my handle is YOURSTYLED collective. So COLLECTIVE. So drop me a DM on there, or otherwise you can find me at my website, which is yourstyledcollective.com.au as well. But if you want to get a kickstart or anything like that, I've got a freebie on there which will take you through some of those first 3 steps as well. So if you jump on the website, you'll be able to see it. It's right there.
That's awesome. And if you're listening, I'll put everything in the show notes so that way you can just click the link in it and definitely connect with Sonya. But this has been so awesome. What a great conversation. It's exciting. And it really just makes you realize how important it is to have that personal brand to walk into each level and aspect of your life feeling like the way you want to feel. So thank you so much for sharing everything you did.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for having me on. It's been fantastic.
Yes, I really enjoyed connecting with you. And again, if you're listening to this, definitely leave any comments and share this episode with somebody who might benefit from it. And that's the beauty of something like this, that because we can spread these messages to really help ourselves move into the next level of ourselves, being the best version of ourselves. So thank you again.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey there, thanks for listening to this episode. I hope it serves you well to start rewiring your brain to create the life you desire. If you found value in this, please share it with a friend and tag me on Facebook or Instagram at Dr. Kelly Kessler.